Okay, hey guys, it's Luke Johnson from Noetic, the humanities, philosophy, and poetry teaching app. Go download it. Today we have our guest, Charles Clifford Brooks III. He will be teaching us some William Blake today. Cliff, these meetings that we have are very, very special to me. I personally feel like I'm getting an Oxford education when I speak to you and the other poets that are involved with the body of knowledge that's being curated for the Noetic app. So I just want you to know how grateful I am for this experience, and I imagine that other individuals who get to eavesdrop on our conversation feel the exact same way. So why don't I let you do your thing and let you teach me something about William Blake?
All right. In all of life, we have the ultimate dichotomy of good versus evil, pleasant versus uncomfortable. Whether it's two presidential candidates, a situation you deal with in life, like a job, a relationship, you always have those two sides of the same coin, or two roads, or two ways, two kinds of people. And Blake dealt with that with two poems called The Tyger and the Lamb. I love Blake for his philosophy and his spiritualism. He had his own brand of religion, as it were. And I could go on for hours about that, but that would honestly just end up boring the public, I'm sure. But
I don't know about that.
No, it probably wouldn't. He was a fascinating guy. He was a nudist as well, which I'm a fan of in this Georgia heat right now. It's just, but I'm reading today from the Everyman's collection of Blake, and it's a series of books that I love to death just because they're very well made, and they're extremely easy to find in any bookstore. But it's the William Blake Poems and Prophecies from the Everyman's collection. And I'll start with the Lamb, where again, you're kind of going from dark to light, or light to dark in this case. And with the Lamb, you have really, again, from a Judeo-Christian standpoint, you have the where Jesus is seen as the Lamb, but in this case, it's just really a gentle creature, which I'm sure the underpinnings here, the secondary meaning is to give some allusion to the Christ-like figure, but in a way that it's something simple, something light, something pure. The Lamb. Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Gave thee life and bid thee feed by the stream and o'er the mead. Gave thee clothing of delight, softest clothing, woolly bright. Gave thee such a tender voice, making all the vales rejoice. Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Little lamb, I'll tell thee. Little lamb, I'll tell thee. He is called by thy name, for he calls himself a lamb. He is meek and he is mild. He became a little child. I a child, and thou a lamb. We are called by his name. Little lamb, God bless thee. Little lamb, God bless thee. And so you see, again, where he doesn't use a heavy hand to exclude readers. And I mean, this may not have been something he intended, but where he does talk, and again, directly with the reference to God, the reference to Christ, where he brings it in here, but he doesn't keep it so narrow that those who don't enjoy or really cleave to this idea or this ideal, this philosophy, this faith, they don't feel like they're excluded, that they're run out. But he doesn't apologize for his faith either. And it's a fine line to walk. I like how he begins with the question, little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Then repeats it again, because how many times in life have we said, in the positive sense, going to the beach or to some location, seeing someone we love and saying, how did I get so lucky? How did I get so lucky? I love coming here. God, why am I so lucky to get this privilege? And he then answers it. Well, I'll tell thee where you're made, why you're called that, why you've done this. He is called by thy name, the Lamb. For he calls himself a lamb. He is meek and he is mild. We hear that all the time, whether it's enjoyable weather, meek and mild, to be calm, to be composed, to be in control of yourself, because everything else is not going to be in your control. He became a little child to Mary and Joseph. I a child, and thou a lamb. I became a child, though you are the actual literal animal. We are both called by his name because we were both created from the same source. And then again to this small animal, little lamb, God bless thee. Little lamb, God bless thee. The repetition in life, to enjoy something, not just the repetition that we hear so much about learning that hard lesson. It always comes with enjoying the small things in life, which in this case is literally a lamb. And so Blake, again, he takes back the small things in life, you know, to stand back where I, as a poet, have found so much inspiration, and always is my answer when somebody says, where do you get your strength as a writer? Where do you get your energy to create? And it's from life, from sitting down. And Blake could have been sitting or walking past a market or, you know, through a pasture and seen a lamb and been struck by the idea and said, that is gorgeous. That's a beautiful animal. And then in his mind thought, well, that's what Jesus called himself. We refer to him as the lamb. And then kind of taking that peaceful, pure moment and wanted to crystallize it in this imaginary conversation. Then we move over to the Tyger, the other side of the coin, the second road that could be taken, that hard lesson where we've been treated or mistreated by someone and thought, how could that be okay? Seeing these horrible things going on when we've all endured some life to see tragedy and thought, why would this loving God who created such a beautiful, meek and mild creature as the lamb create something as vicious as the Tyger or this war or this individual?
May I ask a question here before you begin the recitation? So, something I noticed in the version that I'm looking at, which is I just found on the internet, is that the lamb occurs, it seems like, in a series of poems called the Songs of Innocence, and the Tyger occurs in the Songs of Experience. And I was just kind of curious if you could illuminate how Blake bundled these poems. Were those separate books, or were they chapters within a single book? I'm just kind of, because I'm interested that my cursory search for materials on the internet, it seems like these poems are frequently paired together, and I didn't know if they were written at drastically different times or if they were put within the same work.
As far as I understand it, I mean, I've seen them, the Songs of Experience and the Songs of Innocence. They kind of they speak of themselves in the case of like he bundled those like the lamb in one. Now I've always seen them in the same collections. I can go back and double check that as well, but I've always seen the Songs of Experience and the Songs of Innocence together, but kind of as that dichotomy, but they've been divided into the two. There was no mixing to give you that the two sides of the same coin. Blake was one of those who never let things go. He also had his other side passion was the very intricate way that he would create these plates in his artwork, which again, if you go back and look into that, I mean, is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
And he would insert those in that, and actually had a few gallery type exhibitions, but never really made real big headway in it. But of course now they're priceless. But as far as the book is concerned, he did bundle those again, those of the songs of light, the songs of childhood, those of the pleasant experiences that make us or retain some of our childhood, that like Christmas, there's always a part of us that when that day comes around that you can't help but feel a little excited about what people are going to get you, and you to see your grandparents again, or your, those relatives that you haven't seen since, last Christmas or Thanksgiving. There's that innocence that he's trying to portray and capture in one series of poems. And I want to say that, just to say, like, an experience, and again, especially with the Tyger, if you look at a Tyger, they're beautiful. And it's not to say, well, something beautiful is going to bite you. It's just that, there's reason outside this. I follow God on Twitter. No joke. He's on Twitter. And I'm not joking. One of his tweets was set up where the question was, is life fair? And so here's God, answering them. Short answer, no. Long answer, no. We're not going to know why things are created sometimes, why some things happen. Some things happen. I don't think that religion or science is ever going to find out where the Big Bang came from, because we're not supposed to. And so the Tyger is its own beautiful creature. It's not out there to attack people and make their lives miserable. There are people out there that are very much like that. But I believe, maybe it's my innocence that they're much more in the Book of Innocence than the Book of Experience that are like that. But, it's not that something, if it seems dangerous, if it seems evil in its own sense, it's not necessarily true. It's just our concept of that term or that way of life. And
I have one more question, because you opened up a few more, and I hope you don't mind my interruptions too much. And I really enjoy the Tyger that you're about to read. It's actually one of the few Blake poems I'm familiar with before before we started doing this. Something that I wanted to ask you about the Songs of Innocence and the Songs of Experience. Are these two poems considered to be the best within those collections? Is the Lamb considered to be the best within the Songs of Innocence, and is the Tyger considered to be the best within the Songs of Experience, or are there others that people know as well?
By far and away, I think that folks are much more aware of the Tyger and the Lamb than any of the other poems in the book. But if you took, for example, any radio, like most of the bands that they play on oldie stations, you hear only those biggest hits. You don't hear sometimes songs that you yourself would find much more enjoyable. They're like the B-sides, or maybe those songs that weren't as popular. But at the time, these two poems were just picked up as like the greatest hits of Blake by a large point, not just in these two books or these two collections of poems, but really as his whole body of work. Those two poems have really come out, not because they're short or because they're easy to read, but they have so much conveyed in a very, what seems to be simple garb. They seem to wear the clothes of a much easier to relate idea. And it is, and that's another difficult part of writing is as far as like, balancing this with musicians. There's a musician named Kid Cudi who,
oh, I know.
The Pursuit of Happiness is a song where we all want to find happiness. We all want to search for happiness. We're all oftentimes we feel we're thwarted from getting that happiness. And if you understand that on the surface, then the song still, holds its weight with you. However, he mentions being bipolar. He mentions depression. He mentions, what do you know about night terrors? Nothing. Now, anybody who's had night terrors, I've had them personally, they're much more intense than nightmares. And it's something very indicative with very extreme personalities. I really don't cleave to the word disorder, because I believe that's a much more negative chain to hang around the neck than just the fact that it's a specialized set of skills that just sometimes come, like with many things, you don't get, again, the light and the dark. You don't get something for nothing. There's always going to be a backlash, as it were, to a very passionate life, or a very, very direct, very encompassing, very detail-oriented mind. There's going to be something there. All that being said, when you hear that undercurrent with Kid Cudi's song "Pursuit of Happiness," you'll catch those little things. So again, you know what it's like to be thwarted from your purpose, or what you want to have, or who you want to be with. But then you also find on a deeper level, if you can catch that subtext, that if you can find that, then you kind of get deep into that as well, and you hear it on a whole different level. And Blake instituted that in these poems as well, because people immediately want to say, well, the Tyger burning bright, in the forest of the night, what immortal eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? It's almost like a slap at God. How could God make this lamb and then make this, Tyger? How could God bless me one day and then give me this horrible, barb in the side, today? It's that ultimate question of how can good, how can good exist with evil? Why does evil exist? In this case, I think he was kind of brilliant when he took in the Tyger, taken in a very literal example of something that I'm pretty sure if there's one outside the window and I tried to go feed it a hot dog, it would eat me first, So I'm saying maybe you shouldn't go poke the Tyger to begin with. But when he gets over with the Tyger, I believe that he just really wants to do the same thing with the lamb, where he opens up asking the lamb, you're so innocent, you're so meek, you're so mild, how could God, why would God put you here? It has to be for our own enjoyment. And then he flips around with the Tyger asking the opposite. And I think that honestly, like with many writers, with many creators, you do figure out more about yourself as you write, as you create, paint, take photos, but you kind of have your own answer working backwards to more of the questions. And one of I think, so again, it's when he set out with the Tyger, I think he'd already had this idea there, but it always, like I said, you always want to, it's not really just the star quality, but you kind of want to wish you could sit down with him to go, what were you thinking when you did this? How did this come about? What were you going through when you picked the Tyger? Why did you spell it Tyger instead of with the, the I? And again, there's the British versus, English spelling, American spellings. But there's little things, why, because really, as far as the phonetic sound with the Y, you get more of the Tyger, the way you would hear it, when you would read it on the page. Again, poetry needing to be read out loud. I can't preach that enough.
Well, why don't you go ahead and and read it because I can't wait to see how you will interpret it. I love this poem.
All right. The Tyger. Tyger, Tyger, burning bright in the forests of the night. What immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? And what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet? What the hammer, what the chain, and what furnace was thy brain? What the anvil, what dread grasp dare its deadly terrors clasp? When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to thee? Did he who made the lamb make thee? Tyger, Tyger, burning bright in the forests of the night. What immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? And to be honest,
tell you that
I like this one more than I do the lamb. I just the language of it, the ultimate questions of it, the repetition of the first and the last stanza have one change in the last line of each stanza. In the first one, you have could frame thy fearful symmetry. Then you have the last one to say dare frame thy fearful symmetry. Where you have
your favorite? Is that your favorite line? Because I have favorite lines in this one that jump out at me. I'm kind of curious if we have the same favorite lines.
Oh, for me, those aren't my favorite. It's more of a, I think to me, it's in the beginning he's trying to pose more of the open, more naive, who could have done this? To once he's worked through this poem about in what deep skies or what deeps, again, you have the deeps or what skies. He's almost leaving an idea there that maybe God didn't have a lone hand in creating this beast. To the fall in heaven when Lucifer went against the Creator and he fell down. Again, kind of alluding to that with when the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears. Again, kind of going to that battle in heaven. Maybe we always want to say that like some folks want to say, well, the Lord made women, but the devil made all the tempting parts. No. They want to, again, did maybe some underhanded power have something to do with creating evil or injustice? And the idea in this poem, I think, really is that all creation tends to spiral from the same source. Create, stand up, breathe, sing from the same place, the same central home. And he's throughout the poem going again with the open-ended question, and then this brilliant, and each of these poems uses so few words that really, some of them that we don't use as much anymore, but each and every word, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone from any educational level who can't grasp this poem, that doesn't know what each of these words mean.
Yeah. Can I tell you my two favorite lines?
Please.
What the hammer, what the chain, in what furnace was thy brain? I don't know if there's much commentary on that. I'm sure there is, but that particular those particular coupled lines are the ones that jumped out to me. I don't know if you have anything in particular to say about those, but they resonate with me. I see them possibly resonating with an individual such as yourself too. Oh, absolutely. It's because again, it kind of gives you this idea, this vision in your head. If you've ever seen someone work with metal and with fire, with the chain, and you're pulling down the pieces and the hammer while you're trying to bash it out, and the whole time you have this very dark, gloomy, scary, fire-ridden, hellish place that this thing's being forged in, and being set free. And again, you want to think of like the Kraken from Greek mythology, or Sauron from Tolkien. This very, again, they all kind of use this same fiery metal
clashing, machine grinding cog kind of industrial revolution imagery over and over and over again. And, you know, it's, you know, again, and I love, and what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart. You know, does he mean designing the heart itself, or the interior, the feeling of it that could twist this beast to be so seemingly vicious versus the mild and gentle lamb? We don't know. We're not supposed to figure it out. This whole thing is kind of the poet, the artist trying to figure out, as we all are, our own lives and the way we believe and what we believe. You know, Socrates, an unexamined life is not worth living. That's what these poems are both doing. You know, he's asking some frightening questions, because if the same creator put the tiger, whether literally or metaphorically, in our hearts or on the land, did in fact create the lamb and our kindness and generosity, that could pose a very frightening question as far as what our concept of what good and bad are. Are they both necessary creatures? Well, literally as animals, yes, they are. I believe they are. They both perform functions. And would you know good if there was no evil? Would you know happiness if you didn't have depression, sadness? You know, and I think the answer is no. I don't think you would know. I don't think that without the whole idea of freedom of choice, that which means that we are able to fall down, make bad choices, not follow the rules all the time. I think that if we didn't have that human ability, that then we'd be left being automatons, and that would be a very boring life indeed.
I think poems are incredibly rich from a philosophical perspective. I think what I hope, and I hope, you know, you have a standing invitation to contribute as much as you want to Noetic, and what I hope is that we do more Blake in the future, and that we get to elaborate upon these themes throughout his entire authorship, because I'm seeing a lot of the same things. I'm very interested about his inclination towards mysticism, his unique conceptions of religion, and philosophically, there's a lot of generative ideas here that I think we could take up quite a robust discussion of.
I agree. I mean, I think honestly, that's why when you brought it up, I never thought about it. You know, because I try to pick poems that people may have heard of, especially those that are more easily accessible, not from an intellectual level, but from an experience level. But to come back, I would love to have, you know, I would love to be here as much as you let me. But to come back with, you know, come into the same book and find some of my personal favorite deep cuts, as it were, to come back and to flesh out, as it were, who Blake was as a person. I would love to do that, man.
Yeah, I think that'd be phenomenal. I have to say, I mean, I'll let you close with whatever you want to close with, but I have to say that it's really phenomenal that I get to, that this gets to be my job, that I get to have you teach me. So I want to thank you again for lending your genius and your brain to this project. I'm eternally grateful.
And I mean, I cannot thank you enough for how you have allowed me to be here and do this. The poem that I want to end with is from Blake as well, and it's called Holy Thursday. And it's one that I want to kind of leave with at the end. I'm not going to discuss much about in case, you know, actually, I'd like to kind of, you know, right after this, you know, close off the show, just to let people let it swirl around their heads, go find it on themselves. And, you know, we'll come back to this poem again and have more input and see what people think about it. So, Holy Thursday from Songs of Experience, William Blake. Is this a holy thing to see in a rich land and fruitful land? Babes reduced to misery, fed with cold and usurious hand. Is that trembling cry of song? Can it be a song of joy? And so many children poor, it is a land of poverty. And their sun does never shine, and their fields are bleak and bare, and their ways are filled with thorns. It is eternal winter there. For where'er the sun does shine, and where'er the rain does fall, babe can never hunger there, nor poverty the mild appall. Holy Thursday. Yes. Thank you.